That's great silence altogether. I might need a microphone at all this year. Device. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're all very welcome to the 26 readings from the Pallet, our annual gathering. I think we outdone ourselves last year on the 25th that we had that many people that they said they weren't coming this year. I have a good number of apologies, but so start with our tradition. I just ask everyone while people are reading just to give them the bit of silence they deserved, and just if we could turn off all electronic devices. Take out your teeth if they're not your own, or if they are, fasten them. George will go through the rules and start. But first, I suppose this year is a little bit different, that we'd like to welcome Lynn Maloney, a fellow Palletarian, who is gone in and published her first book, so congratulations to Lynn. Little did we know all the years ago that she had the intentions of publishing her book, and I'm sure she'll come up and tell you a little bit about the fairies around Banagher later. And I think he launches next Friday night in the school, so if you're all available for that, I think it's 6 or 7 o'clock next Friday evening. So unfortunately this is the first year we don't have Peg with us either, so the girls are going to start. Okay. So we're going to start with Lauren, so we're going to start with.
Come with me. God saw her getting tired, a cure was not to be. He wrapped her in his loving arms and whispered, come with me. She shuffled much in silence, her spirit did not bend. She faced her pain with courage until the very end. She tried so hard to stay with us, but her fight was not in vain. She took her in his loving home and freed her from the pain.
Good girl. Stand beside her. Stand beside me.
Okay. Oh yeah, she's the finest. I can't see.
What's wrong?
Okay, hold it for you. Okay, you're talking here.
Mother's Chocolate Valentine's by Jack Presley. I bought a box of chocolate hearts and present for my mother. They looked so good. I tasted one, then I tried another. They both were so delicious that I ate another 4. Then I ate another couple and half a dozen more. I couldn't seem to stop myself. I nibbled on and on. Before I knew it, what happened, all the chocolate hearts were gone. I felt a little guilty. I was stuffed down to my socks. I ate my mother's Valentine's. I hope she likes the box.
Thank you, Rosie. Walking. Now we'll start with George. He'll give you a quick rundown of the rules.
Okay, Sean. I left the rules in front of you, George. Thank you very much. The main rule is to bring the prop with them. Oh yeah, sorry. Good evening, folks. You're very welcome. Glad to be back here again. And well done, girls. That was delightful. And who says that inspiration isn't around here? So during the evening now, the formalities are very what do you call it, easy. Anybody, it's just don't all come up together to read. We'll give you, everybody will get a turn, and another turn, and another turn after that. I don't have a turn.
Yeah.
Right. We'll turn you out the door if we think. Anyway, there's a few little rules by which the poems are considered. And they have to do with the sweetness of tone, the audience appeal, entertainment value, the cultural under or overtones, simplicity and complexity of the text, and delivery. And all participants will be subject to random dope tests. Participants must be in possession of their own teeth, and the judge's decision will be final, subject to appropriate inducements of the liquid variety. Well, there's one tradition that I just deal with, and that is that since the very beginning, my favourite poem was Miles na Offaly, or Limo Nulan, and he had a poem that was very dear to my heart, and it was A Pint of Plain. When things go wrong and will not come right, though you do the best you can, when life looks dark as the hour of night, a pint of plain is your only man. When money's tight and hard to get, and your horses also ran, when all you have is a heap of debt, a pint of plain is your only man. When health is bad and your heart feels strange, and your face is pale and wan, and doctors say you need a change, a pint of plain is your only man. When food is scarce and your larder's bare, and no rashers grease your pan, and hunger grows as your meals are rare, a pint of plain is your only man. In times of trouble and lousy strife, you still got a darling plan. You still can turn to a better life. A pint of plain is your only man.
Right, George.
Thank you, sir. So the person, the colleague, the native, the blackguard, whichever way you want to do it, who started all this many years ago, was Brian Johnson. So I now call on Brian to continue his fine tradition.
Thank you, George. The last reading David Wynne, like I have in tomb, I ended up with a poem of his, and I think Mark might have read it last year. Since then I typed it up because I had trouble reading Dottie's writing. So it's called I'm a Pint Puller. So I'm a pint puller of vodka and a Red Buller. I'm a bit of a psychologist, a bit of a clown, and serve all the thirst of the lads in the town. I've pulled in Simon's, in Flynn's and the Brosna, and of course Corrigan's, the corner house. The stories, the yarns, the sings and the songs, and of course the cards. I've pulled for the brave, the tick and the governor, characters for sure. The likes we'll see no more, but whose ghosts will ramble in. I'm a bit of a bollocks, a wise guy for sure, but you have to put a show on when the crowd come wobbling in. When the end of the night comes and the silence is deafening, you wash all the glasses and clean the jacks, put yourself on a stool and you fill up your glass. I'm a bullshitter supreme, all learned from the cream, a large bottle, a half one, a pint of plain, the pony the Smithics, too much would drive you insane. There were stories galore, tales of heroism and lore, told by the greats under the influence, that didn't stop them for sure. The years that I pulled and a lot of great memories, the hangovers, the lies, the crack and the stories. So I bid you adieu and thank you for the memories and for singing The Foggy Jew. That was Dottie's poem, his last poem. I don't know if you're aware that today is the feast of St. Francis, or the founder of the crowd I belong to. And of course, you know, when we're talking about environment, Well, Francis wrote the very first environmental song. He wrote it in the year of 1225. And it was called the Canticle of Creation. So maybe we will read it just to show where it all started and where we went wrong. It was the first, I suppose, Italian thing that was written in the vernacular, and so it was recited by the monks. And they say that it was even recited that before Francis died, there were Franciscans here in Ireland that had come, and they carried this with them, and of course it fitted right in with our Celtic spirituality. And it was also said that Francis, on his travels with his fathers, probably met Irish monks in the north of Italy, a place called Bobbio, where the Irish monks had a monastery. And that's where he learned his love for creation. So this is called the Canticle of Creation. Most high, all-powerful, good Lord, yours are the praises, the glory, the honour and blessing. To you alone, most high, do they belong, and no one is worthy to mention your name. Praised be you, my Lord, with all your creatures, especially, Sir, brother, Son, who is the day and through whom you give us light. And he is radiant and beautiful with great splendour and bears the likeness to you, Most High One. Praise be you, Lord, through sister moon and the stars in heaven. You formed them clear and precious and beautiful. Praise be you, my Lord, through brother wind and through the air, cloudy and serene, and every kind of weather, through which you give us sustenance, and sustenance to all your creatures. Praise be you, my Lord, through sister water, which is very beautiful, humble, precious, and chaste. Praise be you, my Lord, through brother fire, through whom you light the night. Praise be you, my Lord, through our sister, Mother Earth, who sustains and governs us, and produces various fruits with coloured flowers and herbs. Praise be you, my Lord, to those who give pardon for your love and bear infirmity and tribulations. Blessed are those who endure in peace, for you, the Most High, they shall be crowned. Praise and bless all of my creation. Give thanks to the God and serve him with great humility, the maker of all constellations. That was Francis in 1226. And I suppose just maybe keeping in tune with that, I may have read this one before. It is called Monsanto Ale. I don't know if you're familiar with the company Monsanto. They're into genetic modifications of plants and food in particular, and they're making it very difficult for the developing countries, even though the plants and the crops would always be kind of bug free, but they can never be regrown. You can't get seeds from them, and because of that, it has led to a lot of poverty in some areas of Africa. And so Monsanto also make pesticides that have been proven to be carcinogenic and very poisonous. So this is called Monsanto Ale. It's about spraying. The tractor trail of spray cheated the caterpillar of its metamorphosis, and cheated me of one of creation's marvel miracles, light out of darkness. Wings the width of spider legs, carrying the colours of the rainbow, floating on air with invisible wings. Now, never to reflect the brilliance of the Creator or the radiance of the sun, never to give joy to the world. All because we want his space. Oh, what kills you? Oh, what kills you? What happens to the universe happens to me. The bee, pollen fresh on his legs, pollen of primroses, pollen of daffodils, pollen of whitethorn, pollen of promises, pollen of future, now buzzing about my house like a drunken maniac, drunk with Monsanto ale, hitting the window, now the floor, now the wall, now the door, finally resting on the table, unable to arise, his membrane wings punctured with holes. No more honey, no more flowers, his legs now stiff and stuck. Nothing left save pollen on the table, pollen of promises, pollen of daffodils, pollen of whitethorn, pollen of the dead, all because we want his space. What kills you kills me. What happens to the universe happens to me. The swollen-bellied blackbird dead under her nest, her voice silenced forever, a generation wiped out. The young in the nest exhausted from crying, "Mommy, Mommy," dying now from cold and hunger. Chemicals galore, and we're looking for more, all because we want their space. Oh, what kills you kills me. What happens to the universe happens to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And very specially tonight we have Lynn Coughlin, but you know, Lynn Maloney, and maybe you'll join us now, Lynn, please.
Hello everybody. Last year I wrote this for the 25th anniversary, so I'm just changing the year. It's called Readings from the Pallet. 26 years people have come here to spout prose, shout about all those things that help us work out if all is well or not. Gleefully, others listened, their glasses glistened in the half-light, delight at others' play on words. Standing on the pallet boards, all love and life assembled on the pages there. Gathered poets, a motley crew, mostly few, but many grew within this group. And lower and light, jumping from their pages, light as a feather floating together, bind all here, whether or not you know that. As soon as written, history will ne'er be forgotten. Paper never refused ink, be careful. Writing is for the writers, dour and soulful. But writing too can lift a soul above the morning, lifting all, better written down in the morning. Bathed in the golden light, another day, welcomed ever crystal clear, worked and warmed, presented here. A word for word silently welcomed, proving culture can be enjoyed by me, you, each and all, a lowly pallet, the poet's stall. 26 years, we're still enthralled. I suppose if you're writing now and again, or even daily, some people write every day, you always go back to your childhood. So this poem is about our first dog, Goldie, a little golden terrier that we had. We brought her from Aircourt to Banagher, and I think she was 16 and a half when she died. It's just called a childhood pet. Goldie was the mother dog. She churned out pups like rabbits, as fluffy as they were plentiful. Daddy cursed and stamped and ranted. As she was golden, they were black. Nature throws a curveball, and mutiny poor mummy endured when each pup took an owner. For shout and wail we would unite to keep our little puppies. We sometimes drafted in our friends to break Mam's heart entirely. And so the years move on and on. Our Goldie, sweet 16, 112 long dog years, she served her breed quite well. But most of all, she was our friend, faithful little lady. We had grown and she moved on, companioning with Granny. When Goldie died, a great big void was left in our dear house. All Goldie's rovers, wrecks and drovers must sadly too pass on. That's Goldie. And I don't really know how to say it, but I've brought out a little book, and in no small way it's been inspired by the Pallet, and I've only been here a couple of years, kind of a hit and miss type of a thing with me, but it's called Fairy Wonderland of Rhymes, and I suppose it's a kind of a compendium of fairies, but I haven't gone mad. I wrote it after I had a serious illness in 2017, and I also wrote another book of children's rhymes. So I decided to publish this. Sure, I had it written, as I said, in 2017, and I kind of lost the bottle, and I couldn't build up the courage to publish the book. And this time last year, I work in Bord na Móna in Blackwater, and as you all know, Bord na Móna is on the road home as regards jobs and employment and that great big kind of thing that's a part of the Midlands and this region. And voluntary redundancies were announced this time last year, and I had my book of poetry at home under the bed. And the voluntary redundancies didn't actually affect me at the time, and after another few weeks, my boss came in and he said one morning, he says, Lynn, you know, you're going to have to apply for your own job. And I says, well, feck this now anyway, I'm going to publish this book. And I sent it off. I had been researching publishers, self-publishing houses. And I wasn't going to go to Dublin. I says, well, I won't drive to Dublin, but I drive to Galway. So I narrowed the search down to Galway. And I found Tribes Press, and I love the city of Galway, so I honed in on Tribes Press and a publisher in a small publishing house called Marguerite Tonery, and she was an absolute godsend. So the boss left the office, and I had asked Dolores Bergen's Shannon, she's a fantastic young artist, to do 3 illustrations to go with 3 poems. And they were absolutely fantastic, and I had this image of a whole book of poetry about, well, the fairies first of all, and then the children's nursery rhymes after. But I had also read about publishers. They say, don't ever get your own illustrator, because publishing houses have their own illustrators. So I sent off the email with the 3 poems and the 3 illustrations, and within 5 minutes, Marguerite contacted me and she says, Lynn, she said, we have to meet up. And I went out to the boss and I said, I have to take a half day, which you can do in Bord na Móna. And down I shot down the motorway to Galway, and I met Marguerite for the first time, and it took all of 11 months for the 73 illustrations to be done by a wonderful illustrator called Sally Ann Kelly. She's up in Kildare, I think she's from Kilcock in Kildare. We were never allowed to meet, speak, or have any communication with each other. It was all through the publisher. And the reason for that was that Marguerite, the publisher, said she had had a really bad experience a couple of years ago with a writer and an illustrator. And they were halfway through the book, and the writer was absolutely doing the illustrator's head in, and the illustrator said, that's it, I'm taking back all my pictures, and they had to start all over again. So I had to put my trust in Marguerite, and I have to say that she hasn't failed me yet. So I'm just going to read one poem from A Fairy Wonderland of Rhymes. The book is €20, and it's available in the post office here, in Paul and Mary Flynn's, the Flower Shop, and John Feeney's. And it's also available down in Two Wild Geese in Galway, and from Tribes Press online. I suppose I was writing every day after I had my operation. I was getting little prompts, and I was using my phone, put in a little prompt on the phone in the memo, work on it on a Saturday and Sunday morning. And I often say to Marguerite, I had the easiest job. The poor illustrator had to get up every day, go to work, do her day job, go home and work on my illustrations for 11 months. I wrote all of these lying up, propped up on pillows on a Saturday and Sunday morning, and the tea and toast being drawn into me. So it was very late on after a number of weeks when I wrote this, and I kind of had a feeling that fairies are more like angels. I call them land angels. So this is called The Bravery of Fairies, and I have to say it's the one poem that all the teenagers pick out. It's about war, and you can see the soldier's boot on the illustration is fantastic. All the teenagers pick this out, and a lot of adults pick this out as their favourite. It's called The Bravery of Fairies. Where were all the fairies when the horrid bombs they fell? And where were all the little sprites when battleships sailed the swell? Oh no, they didn't run and hide, I'm sure you thought it so. For fairies are sweet warriors who led the fight, you know. When the young man in the trenches, muddied and bloodied there, wavered in his bravery, who whispered in his ear? And when the young naval lad screamed and hid with fear, who gently whispered, get up lad, there's work to be done here. And when the timid soldier boy shuddered at the call, whose little wings a feathered brush pushed him through the trawl, onwards, helping, urging, young men many fall, fairies led the charges, victory their call. Now you see how fairies save the world we know, for fairies are fierce warriors who fight for right, you know.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing all your experiences with us tonight. Okay, David, will you do this now, please?
More gadgets here. Housework there.
Bit of housework.
George didn't do the mind.
Well, first of all, I've got a poem or two from Nuala Flannery, who was dying to be here today or tonight, and she couldn't. So she stuck a few pieces of paper in my letterbox with a note explaining it. Now I know that if she was here, she'd be jumping around. I'm not going to jump around, but you can imagine. But basically, the note says, Nuala here, leaving these two poems with you, written the week David passed away. That's David Wynn. The other written on the same theme about myself and two friends who visited Banagher in 1976. So apparently they came to Simon's. David was working behind the bar, and this is her thoughts on it. At least I think that's what it means. So this one is called On the Road Again. With his boyish brown hair and laughing eyes, looking over the counter at three mysterious gals, I knew well that you were up to no good, making most of your holidays as you should. What's your poison? Don't look for the drink of diversion. This is a wholesome pub with ale and stout, as folks would drink. So where are your friends from? Antrim, I declare. She would go, Antrim, I declare. It would take you, Flan, to be friends from people from anywhere. It's a bit early for our lads looking for whiskey dorums. They'll spin you some stories, you couldn't ignore them. So are you looking for gin and a bit of ice? I think, women, you need to roll the dice. Janie Davy, will you give us some beer? And we'll sing you a song that's out this year called Davy's on the Road Again, wearing different clothes again. That's the first one. And apparently they came back then again later to visit him, and this is called Us Three Women Return. We returned to meet the young lad Davy. He worked in our small bar, the tourist called Crazy. We asked again for our drink of gin, ice and tonic. Begorra, says Dave, do you think I'm Sonic? The gin and tonic I could go bionic, but the ice, that will be a breezer, as I don't have a freezer. You could have whiskey of the best, I don't test, or ale. It has no time to go stale. The old porter, that's the sorter, and the wine, the pick of the landlord's vine. Could I interest you in a bit of Buntus Concha, that's chat, of this and of that. Oh, did you know Danny Doyle, the singer, knocked ABBA off #1? Not by design, with a song the rare old time. Davy, we didn't travel from Antrim to listen to your banter. Can you beg, borrow or steal some ice, so us three women can have a gin, tonic, ice and slice? And now we ponder some nights on celestial sights, Davy on the Milky Way, laughing because we didn't get our way. So I did my best.
Yeah, you did very well.
The sister was sent to watch me. I had to delve back into some of the old stuff because I didn't write anything new, so you'll have to bear with me. I wrote this a while ago when people were leaving for jobs, and I suppose it's not that much different now. So this is because this is called Before You Leave Banagher. They say that travel broadens the mind, you'll hear it up and down, but the mind can find education in the characters of a town. Now I've never been to China, Pakistan or Commons West, but to venture through the hometown is the journey I like best. I bought screws from Kieran Coakley, both loosened by the pound, and a tracksuit from Lorna Hogan in the sports shop up the town. I drank rabbit soup in Nallans, in between the pints of stout, with Ollie loading up the dogs and Biddy giving out. Snooker down the West End, with Paddy Kenny and Ger Glynn, while Tom Flynn crunched bags of glossy sweets to create an awful din. When Simon supplied the bacon, I sliced rashers and boned ham, while Tom Dempsey gave the orders and he loading up the van. I remember Father John McNally calling to the school when he was home, and how fierce important I always felt, 'cause he was one of our own. Oh, and on a Christmas morning, singing songs and telling yarns, while the adults wet their whistles in the home of Peter Barnes. I drank tea in Ballyector, came in the door round the back, had brown bread with loads of butter and a word with Kitty Mack. And on polling day at election time, checking lists and drinking tea, with banter tales and stories from that Eta Killalay. I remember one Christmas Eve, Mick Corrigan delivering drink, a wooden box of bottles, and he threw in a bottle opener, I think. Quigleys and green school anoraks, oh the colour made me sick, as Ev pulled up the zipper and said, it's perfect for you, Vic. I talked horses with Jim Reynolds, watching racing on TV, discussing who's the greatest, was it Piggott or Edery? Bank holiday Monday evenings by the fire in Simmy's bar, singing songs with Mikey Hinchy, and Joe Kennedy was never far. I've rolled around with laughter at Billy Burke's rhyme and jargon. I've watched Peter Wynn's gentle hand bring magic to a garden. As a boy, the finest toy I had was a barrow made of timber, made by the kind and gentle hands of Harry Johnson, I remember. I stacked shelves in Jackie Rylands with Maureen at the till. Is our Bobby in Burr still golfing? I hear Jackie roaring still. I've marvelled down in Johnny Hawk's at the doll with dancing feet, and at Boxcar's battered knuckles as the timber he would beat. I saw turf fall on the main road from Charlie Daly's Cast and Art and Cart and Ass. I shouldn't have wrote that. I queued for fizzlesticks and sherbet in Mulhair's just after Mass. I've enjoyed the subtle tone and verse of a Paddy Tully poem. 'Twas often ringing in my ears as I uphill shuffled home. I brought mousetrap spoons and woolly socks when often I'd call in for the Press or Independent in the home of Seamus Flynn. On Sunday mornings bright and early, in the house with little Gable, I'd watch before the collection as Kieran Foley pulled out the table. When the TV wasn't working, to Jimmy Kennedy we would rush. He'd always sort you out with something. It could be a Phillips or maybe a Bush. Mrs. Peters sold us ice cream and jelly beans in a can. I remember old Jack Madden and his dog called Dandy Man. At the September Fair on our main street, there was always fun and games. I often stood with the grand grey mare belonging to Michael James. The first time I saw magic was above in the primary school. Dennis Lynch could make his thumb disappear. We all thought that was cool. Do you remember that then? Of the moon's bright silvery light, I heard the songs of Paddy Kelly. I got parcels, cards and letters from the postman, old Dan Shelley. I bought Beano, Shoot and Dandy from newsagent Paddy Flynn. I heard Seanie Madden whistle as he pushed his wheelie bin. I've heard Toot True a million times by the twin while holding rank. 'Twas always Mick that said it, not forgetting brother Frank. While Mulvey cured the animals, 'twas Dalton gave us pills, the healing hands of medicine brought to us by these two bills. Pauky Flynn would fill your glass up with whiskey ale or stout, but he'd pick you up and dust you off if you had to be laid out. I heard tunes from Devery's squeezebox of the likes you'll see no more, and when he took to laughing, Lord, he'd have you in the snores. So, with your passport in your pocket and your suitcase in the hall, God bless you on your journey, young people one and all. Take care, be kind and honest, and sing a happy song, and remember all the natives in this place from which you're from. Thank you.
Thanks very much, David. That was excellent. Well done. I don't know where all these are. Do you want to read here, lads? Okay. Cora's going to substitute for another poet. That's all I can say.
Not poetry this time.
Can't hear you.
Not poetry this time, it's prose. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
This is called Granny's Button Box, and it was written by Esther's sister Nancy, published in Ireland's Own and then in this publication by Offaly County Council. So it's quite long, so I'm editing, so if you could bear with me as I go along, please. Okay. I came across it the other day, my granny's button box, faded from the light and going rusty from years of lying on the windowsill in Granny's house, and it took me back 50 years. We were lucky to have Granny living about 2 miles over the bridge, and we visited her a lot. Never the 10 of us together, all together, but in 2s and 3s at any one time. This was quite enough for Granny to cope with. What can I say? The room I liked best was called the far room, because it was at the end of the house and was always cool. This was where the milk churn and big brown crocks of milk, cream and milk buttermilk were kept. There was a huge wooden chest, and in it Granny kept the good bed linen, tablecloths and her best pens, bills, photographs and important documents like birth and marriage certificates. The chest was out of bounds for children. It was in this room that jelly, cornflour and custard moulds were left each Saturday evening for eating on Sunday. The days spent in Granny's were filled with things to do. Friday mornings, the fresh eggs were carefully wiped with a damp cloth and packed in little cardboard boxes and counted. The country butter would be wrapped in greaseproof paper, and my aunt would set off to town to sell them. She would return with tea, sugar, bread soda, carbolic soap, a loaf of bread, iced buns, mixed sweets, bullseyes and clove drops, which would be kept in a little jar on the dresser. I don't find this bit about Granny. I think what Granny enjoyed most was when it was their turn to have the station. The house would be painted and whitewashed in preparation. The kitchen table would be covered with a snow-white linen tablecloth and transformed into an altar. Everyone for miles around would attend, and after Mass, breakfast was served in the parlour, consisting of boiled eggs, fresh bread, country butter, pound cake and biscuits. The ladies usually got a glass of port and the men little bottles of Guinness. I remember when one of my uncles, who had gone to America when he was 19 years old, wrote and said that he was coming home on holidays. He was met in Cove by a hired hackney car and arrived with several trunks and gifts for all. That night there was a house dance to welcome him home. There were concertina, accordion and fiddle players, and I can still see the set dancing, waltzing and hear the screams of "Mind the dresser." When the dancers got tired, someone would oblige with a song like "Boule Vogue" or "Tipperary So Far Away." Could you ever imagine that this little button box could hold such happy memories of bygone days?
Thank you, Cora. Oh, you're kidding. Now, next we have Seamus Kenny, who's going to read a poem written by his granddaughter.
Hang on. What's my face for green? Oh, God. No, I think I can read it from this. Oh, yeah. Oh, modern technology. She said, Aoife, my granddaughter, sent me it by email, but anyway, I got it printed out. So, no one peeks behind the shutters, no one sees all the clutter. The disguise is one of a mastermind magician, a Buddhist posing as a Christian. Swimming deeper against the current, awed by the beauty of depth, how we often get swept. Into the darkness, into the silence, into the sudden solitary rush of aloneness. The echo is solace, peace. Like a bay breeze twisting trees, bourbon and spice, the pen paints a hue, each stroke something nice. There is power in being broken. Cemented walls effaced by graffiti, but to an artist it is art, to society vandalism. Like prisms, the broken have the ability to shift light. We maneuver through tough times, can't be touched, but touch lives. From Sun's Gate we sit on milk crates and blow smoke from cratered lips, gesturing, jeering and wheedling our way through the world. Coaxing and flattery gets us everywhere. Remember, after all, we are mastermind magicians. And by the way, Brian, she was in New York University Poetry Club for years, and she hasn't done anything for the last couple of years. But she's been writing some every year for the last 20 years.
Thank you, Seamus, and well done, and give her our best, and tell her she keeps writing, we'll keep reading.
It was difficult. She just had given me a great granddaughter there a couple of years ago.
Wow. So it's not just poetry. Now we have a guest. I don't know if he ever read here before, but Robbie Butler is going to read for us now. He has a poem about. Coincidentally, I heard the same poem on the radio last Sunday morning. Right, Robbie? Please. Thank you, and you're all in the back there. Thanks, Robbie. I'll let you do the introduction, name the poem and the poet.
This piece was written by John Sigerson Clifford. He left Kerry and joined the civil service and never went back to Kerry to live or to retire. And it was a piece that Sean O'Sheahan always used as a party piece if he was asked to recite or sing. It's called The Boys from Barnasraja. The town, it climbs the mountain, and it looks upon the sea. And in sleeping time and in waking, should it's there I long to be. To walk again those kindly streets, the place my life began, with the boys from Barnasraja, who went hunting for their land. And with cudgel stout we roamed about, to hunt the wee droline. We searched for birds in every furze, from Litcher to Duneen. We jumped for joy beneath the sky. We held no print or plan. We were the boys from Barnasraja, who went hunting for the ran. And when the hills were bleeding and the rifles were aflame, to the rebel homes of old Kerry, should the Saxon stranger came. And the men who dared the auxiliaries, aye, and fought the blackened hands, they too were once boys in Barnasraja, who went hunting for the ran. And here's a health to them tonight, those men who laugh with me, by the groves of old Carden River and the streams round Bailey Tee. To John Dawley and Balhandy, the Sheehans, Con and Dan, they were once boys in Barnasraja, who went hunting for the ran. But now the toil on foreign soil where they have gone their way, deep in the heart of old London town, or across in Great Broadway. And I'm left here to sing their deeds, and to praise them while I can, those boys from Barnasraja, who went hunting for the ran. And when the wheel of life runs down, and peace it comes over me, just lay me down in that old town, between the hills and the sea. I'll take my sleep near those green fields. It was there I first grew a young man, with the boys from Barnasraja, who went hunting for the ran. Thank you.
Thank you, Robbie. Well done. And just coincidentally, I heard that on Sunday morning. Same thing. Anyway, thank you. Folks, we're going to take a break now, so you can have a chat and things like that. A cigarette, apparently. Yeah.
You're making him up to say hello. I said she looks like a oh no, it's not like she looks like everybody's fancy different. Can't you say she looks like him? Are you just sorry?
I can't say you look alike anything.
No, really, somebody said she looks like I love she looked like your dad already. Yeah. That poem, what do you call it?